Hi everyone, welcome to Torah on Demand. I'm Rabbi Yael Ridberg. The second book of Maccabees recounts the persecution of the Jews under King Antiochus and the Maccabean revolt against him. The military victory of Judah Maccabee and the defeat of the Seleucid Empire is the story of origin for the celebration of Hanukkah, which begins this week. The book was written for Jews who lived outside the land of Israel around 120 before the Common Era. The text explains that the mitzvah of celebrating 8 days of Hanukkah was invented as a substitute for celebrating the 8 days of Sukkot, which wasn't possible during the Greek reign because of the desecration of the temple. Incredibly, Hanukkah was observed for some 600 years before the fabled story of finding a small jar of oil appearing to have only enough oil for 1 day, but lasting for 8 days, made its way into Jewish literature. The Maccabees rededicated the temple in Jerusalem in 164 before the Common Era, but the oil story appears in the Babylonian Talmud tractate Shabbat from 500 of the Common Era. Why was that special tale of the miraculous needed? Perhaps the military victory and miracle of the Maccabees over the Syrian Greeks was not enough to elicit gratitude when the community was what needed to be strengthened. So what is the true miracle that Hanukkah celebrates, and what are the emotional and or spiritual rationale beyond the story of the jar of oil? I thought about this question this past week while on a solidarity mission to Israel with the San Diego Jewish Federation. We were able to visit Kfar Aza, one of the kibbutzim in our sister region of Shar HaNegev that was so brutally terrorized on October 7th. As we walked through the devastated kibbutz, I passed by a sukkah, still standing, frozen in time, as October 7th was the end of the Sukkot holiday, and when all the surviving members evacuated the kibbutz, the sukkah remained. Here we are, nearly 60 days later, and residents will not return for some time. There's no rededication scheduled yet either, no ability to have a full 8-day holiday, whether a do-over of Sukkot or a miraculous story of divine light against the darkness. The rabbis of the Talmud ask, "My Hanukkah?" What is Hanukkah? They don't ask why we celebrate the holiday, but their question is, on what authority, on what miracle's authority can we include the service of Hallel, the psalms reserved for a biblically ordained holiday, the praising service? Although the war has resumed and more than 100 hostages are still being held in Gaza, I was thinking about on what authority might we offer Hallel on this Hanukkah. In the immediate aftermath of the attacks of October 7th, Israelis across all sectors sprang into action, creating civilian operations rooms, war rooms, if you will, called Hamalim in Hebrew, with thousands of volunteers for all needs. Soldiers who needed rides to their units when public transportation was closed on the holiday, WhatsApp groups that enabled people to show up for funerals and Shiva, thousands of people donating and sorting clothing and food and diapers and all variations of needs, offering housing to help the some 200,000 evacuees from the south and the north, therapists and artists and musicians who created a healing space for survivors of the Nova Music Festival. Miracles, every single one. There's no essential difference here between the natural and the miraculous, to be frank. No fog of war clouded the vision of Israeli society to channel grief and shock and horror into daily opportunities for gratitude. In the ancient story, 1 day of ignited oil was the miracle. 8 days is what warranted the celebration. In this moment, what warrants the celebration of Hanukkah is the dedication and the rededication of Israelis to one another and the fervent hopes they have and that we share to rebuild their communities and the state of Israel as the shamashim, we might say, the helper candles that they are and that we must also be. In the Talmudic conflict between the sages of Hillel and Shammai over the lighting of the candles, Shammai said, begin with 8 lights and decrease for each subsequent night. Hillel countered that you begin with the first night and increase the light over the eight days, ma'alin b'kodesh, which is the prevailing custom. Is the most meaningful mitzvah one of inward joy, increasing day to day, or imagining accordance with the average person's emotions are at their height on the first day and then drop off as the days continue? There is no doubt that increasing and sustaining joy and gratitude is a challenge during wartime. But the miracle of Hanukkah is meant to remind us of the human capacity to find and bring light and share it each and every day until the darkness is no longer visible. May this Hanukkah see the hostages released, the war concluded, and Hamas no longer a threat to anyone. Shabbat Shalom, Chag Urim Sameach. May you have a bright Hanukkah. Thanks for joining me. See you next time.